And welcome to Standouts Radio. We are back with little Dave. It is post-Olympia, and the fall is upon us, which means cold weather for him and I both probably. Um,
Yeah,
yes, the Olympia. Last week was our prediction show. Sadly, neither of us got it right. I
no,
said
not
Bobby, you
even
said Derek.
close. It was a fun one. I mean,
Yes.
we definitely had Sam. I did not have Samson, but
No, no.
um, definitely brought it.
Yes, and I just finished listening this morning through my cardio, um, the podcast with Fuad and Paul, and they were just saying that how different on stage looked in person versus what we saw in the live stream and in photos.
Yeah,
And
usually is. It's. I always love pointing out. It's like if you ever seen these in person, it's nothing. It doesn't come close to what the TV is.
agreed. I mean, I can say this. I don't think I've ever been to any show, pro or NPC, where what I saw with my eyes is what NPC News posts online or what
Yeah,
people post on the internet. Now, those like heavily doctored, filtered photos, those don't count.
yeah. The Walt Whitmans, they look great. Like
Yes.
you're
Oh,
you're hanging that up on your fridge, but I mean,
yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
the lighting's all been changed.
Yes. Shadows have definitely been altered.
Yeah,
I'm not talking shit about those because those are cool photos
yes.
that
I have a set of my own. Like they're fantastic.
correct. But always like if you look at like what I would consider the standard NPC news online photos, I always look at them of clients and of myself personally, and I'm like, man, like that's not what I see. Like that's
Oh, dude,
doesn't
the end. I freaking hate those.
yeah,
The ones what they're just back there, dude. It's hilarious because if you ever pay attention to that camera guy,
I have not.
he's just sitting there with a clicker, and he's just like he'll be like texting and
Mm,
just moving his thumb, taking photos. He's just pointing it at the direction. Like dude, for the what was that? The did we did the June show? Yeah, the June show here.
yeah.
But I kid you not, every single one of my front doubles,
Uh-huh.
he took a photo of me when I'm like this.
Oh, perfect.
Not here, here. And I'm like, why on earth would I want a photo of me like this?
This is a
You
shit
know?
relax.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone would look at that and be like, "Oh, he's trying to do like the Harley Davidson shit."
Yeah. You're like, this guy's stuck to posing. I'm like, no, I just was yet to lift my arms up.
Jesus, yeah, and what's really frustrating is when you look at those and you think, man, like, is that what I looked like on stage? And you start to have all these weird mind games with yourself. Like, was I really in shape? Was I really full? Was I dry at all? Like, did I forget how to pose up there? Like, in the grand scheme of life, like it's just not the truth. And I've always felt this too. Like, if I can find a few photos of someone looking good on those, I'll know that we were in incredible shape. Like, if I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's pretty good. Where in my mind, I know what you look like. I saw you in the Airbnb, the hotel, backstage. Like,
Yeah.
that's I know that can be a really weird thing that I know most people judge other individuals so heavily by those photos, and they think, oh, well, he's not in shape or this or that. And I think it's got to come down to like cameras, lighting, angle, and not always being favorable in terms of the athlete.
Yeah.
And especially if you're not in the pose, like, dear God, you get someone mid pose that looks like they've never trained a day in their life.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, Samson, from what I saw of all like the photos, like either check in or off stage, and even on stage was impressive to me. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt, but I know the people I talked to who were there said what I saw was he looked like an open guy standing beside 212.
Yeah. Well, it was funny on the at the when they put him in the lineup, Derek, it was I remember it was hilarious. I laughed about it because when they walked out the first time in the lineup, they had Samson, Derek, and Andrew, and Derek's like 2 feet shorter than these guys in this
Right.
lineup. And I was just like, the judges are assholes for pulling this one out.
Right. And, I mean, not only the height discrepancy, but how much weight he now I know he creates a good illusion.
Yeah,
But just think about the sheer weight. I mean, you figure Andrew and Samson are probably somewhere in the range of 285 to 305.
yeah,
And he's probably what, 230, 235 at best. Like,
yeah,
fuck. So I mean, from what I saw and what I believe is overall, I feel like, if you look at all of the poses, Hottie probably won the front shots. Samson probably won the side. Derek won the back. But it was, if you think about like a scoring system, it was like Hottie lost drastically from the back, Derek lost drastically from the front, and Samson never lost drastically anywhere. Like that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah,
When I'm thinking about it. I mean, he's definitely brought his back double bicep up, which I know was a weakness of his. And when you do that and bring better condition, I've always felt too like the judges really reward that.
yeah, yeah,
Where I don't know about you, but I don't think this was Derek or Hottie's best, or this was Samson's best.
yeah.
So I think that played
Well,
a role.
yeah. Well, looking at the scorecards, I mean, at prejudging, Hottie and Samson were 8-8.
Tied, right? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then at finals it was 6-9.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, and then Derek is 15-15 both times.
Right.
So
Straight
they had
fourth.
him in they had him in third the whole time, and
Correct.
um,
Yep.
you know, and Martin's right there too. That
Right.
one, Martin really impressed me actually. That when he came out, dude, like I legitimately that front most muscular he was doing was just
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Of everyone, to me, he is the most complete head to toe.
Oh yeah,
And I believe this, right? Like if you put 10 pounds evenly through the course of his body, I think he's beaten Derek and Hottie all day long. Like
yeah,
I just am. And I saw a really crazy comparison photo. It was of Derek from last year and Derek from this year. And to me, what it looked like in the photo, and I know that like in the comment section it was all mixed bag, but it looked like Derek's upper body grew drastically and his legs got worse.
yeah,
And that's a weird look because when you see him in the off season and it was like in that Pittsburgh posing, guest posing, his legs or his quads, hamstrings, glutes look stupid. Like we all know he has the best glutes in bodybuilding. And
yeah,
then his quads, like I don't know, it's very strange. And like from the back, his hamstrings had almost no detail,
yeah,
which is so crazy to me to think that your glutes can look like a walnut, but your hamstrings aren't dug out. Like it makes me wonder what's going on there,
yeah. Yeah, something's wrong training wise.
Or dear God, like I wonder, like, is there body work that needs to be done? Like, something needs to be dug out of there? Like,
Yeah,
what? Again, I know you and I go back to training with that, right? Like, is it a training thing? Is it a posing thing? Like, do you know how to squeeze your glutes that hard and aggressively to like really dig them in, and then also at the same time hit the hamstring? I
yeah.
mean, I don't believe it's a body fat issue. I wouldn't think it doesn't look that way.
That it definitely wasn't that.
So is it like you said, is it a development issue? Do you need to go on that seated leg curl, line leg curl, and wear that motherfucker out? Do you need to learn how to pose those? Like, and I think like that's where Samson traded Derek, right? Is like his glutes weren't as sharp, but his hamstrings were the best of those top three, um, in terms of detail and separation. So
Yeah,
I know so many people want to make it into a glute show, and I think they forget like it's bodybuilding. Like the glute is one muscle, not the entire physique. Um,
yeah,
and obviously Samson blows them to me both away in the side shots on all areas of leg thickness and things like that. So I mean, I agreed with the decision. I know some people probably didn't. Did you feel like after you saw it, you agreed, like with
oh
how
yeah,
he placed those top five?
yeah,
Same.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
I would have actually liked to seen more comparisons of Martin, Hottie, and Derek, if I'm being honest. You know,
Same, same.
like I would have almost dismissed Samson and put those three together and give them all a fair look and say, okay, let's get at it. Um, but I know those judges are good at what they do. So,
Yeah, yeah.
God, dear God, man, can you imagine being fourth at your first Olympia?
Dude, I know. I remember when they put him in the first call outs, you could see his reaction on his face.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep. I can't imagine that adrenaline dump, right?
No,
I'm not saying the first day he picked up weights, he dreamed about that scenario. But at
yeah,
some point in the last 5 to 10 years, he's thought about being on that Olympia stage. And to get in the first call out, dear God, like I mean, I feel like most guys probably say, hey, if I can get in the top 10, I'll be thrilled at first time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
much less the first call out. Fuck, man. Like I can't imagine just holding your composure together like emotionally through that,
Yeah.
and being able to stay within yourself to not overpose and shake and tremor, right? Because
Yeah.
I bet your heart rate goes like, because I can only imagine standing there waiting for Steve to call your name. And you're probably almost like talking yourself out to like, hey, it's not a big deal. If I'm not in the first call, just stay tight, be respectful. Like this is bodybuilding, right?
Mhm.
And then you hear your name in that first call and you're like, fuck, man, like I'm standing beside the best in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to flip your brain into it's time to work. Like it's time. Like now,
Yeah.
this is it.
Yeah. Because, he's probably been looking up to these guys for years.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then standing next to him, he's like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
And then standing next to him and being better than them too.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how many years has Brandon Curry been up there? And he just, walked through him. You
Oh yeah.
know, Hunter
Easy.
Labrada has walked past him.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
the walked past Andrew Jack.
Right.
How many people had Andrew Jack winning the Olympia?
All right. Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
you remember when he competed against us in Texas and everyone's like, oh, Andrew blew him out of the water. Like that had to be going through his mind. Like, this is redemption. Like, it's my day to beat his ass.
yeah,
And yeah, that I can only imagine all of those thoughts and adrenaline and just being able to maintain composure through that is remarkable at his age.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. He did. He killed that.
and I'll tell you what, I know you and I always go back to training, but I believe in my heart the way him and Brett train prepare him for that.
Oh, 100%.
And you can say all this shit about RPE charts and reps in reserve and science and all this bullshit, but there's more to the way, and I'm going to say the four of us, because I think we all train very similarly, watching their shit. There's something that develops character wise that you don't get from other forms of training. Like, and I know some people might not look at bodybuilding that deeply, but to me it does. Like it prepares you for moments in life like that aren't in the gym.
Yep.
And that to me is powerful. And when I can pass that on to someone else, which is I've always felt like my greatest gift is being able to teach other individuals that like, hey man, like this is a transferable skill. And what we do in here will make you better in all aspects of life. And like I really believe that in my heart. So let's see, moving on like to Hunter, man, I think at prejudging, that was one of the best looks he's ever had,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Um I know we skipped over Andrew Jack.
Yeah.
But like those two, I think were in a very, very similar boat. Like if you look at that, they just need to keep getting better. Both of them.
Yeah.
Andrew probably needs more muscle. I don't think Hunter needs a bit more muscle. It's just a matter of, I think, honestly, if he could have probably done 2 more weeks of suffering, he might have been top three. Because
Yeah.
I think he can beat Derek and Hottie based upon the muscle he has. Um, and I don't know about you, but I'm always drawn to his physique. I just like it.
Yeah.
It's almost perfect. Outside of that pec tear, to me, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that if you look at what I would envision to be in the next like 5 years, the top four of like Samson, Andrew, Hunter, and Martin, like I know Derek will be in that mix somewhere.
Yeah.
Because he obviously is an Olympia winner, but those four to me are like what bodybuilding is. So I don't know, we'll see. Not that Derek can't get in there. I think he just has some areas he has to really bring up to be put in that same conversation of making his quads look like they do in the off-season on stage. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's working with one of the best coaches on the planet. So I mean, I don't think they won't figure that out. But if he can
Yeah.
crack that,
He just needs to switch to Samson's wife as well.
yeah. Yes, it's true. Listen, that shows you how good of a person Samson is. I'd have been up there on that Olympia speech, being like, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you."
Yeah.
Because I mean, you think about what he does wrong, right? He competes too much. He did a show 2 weeks before the Olympia, which is a big no-no. His wife is his coach. He fired one of the OGs, right,
Yeah,
in Kilos. Um, he was like analyzing blood work to find out like drug protocols of what was working, what isn't. That's unheard of. Um, what else? He trains super high volume. He doesn't do any of that stupid science ass shit. Like he just goes in there and trains his fucking face off. Like he travels all over the place. Like he
yeah,
essentially does everything wrong that modern day bodybuilding says. And yet he's
yeah,
the best in the world. And it isn't like it's against slouch competition or people who are way off. Um,
yeah. And I mean, he's gonna go do the Arnold, and
right.
but that never happens either.
Mm-mm. No, because what happens when most guys win? They shut everything else down, they do nothing else.
Yeah,
We'll see you again in a year to repeat the title. And
yeah,
you know what's really interesting is I think that that's actually smart for him to stay tighter and not get his like get up to 330, 340, whatever he's capable of.
yeah.
Because it allows his body to just continue to
Yep,
marinate with
tighten
that.
up and
Mhm. Yep. Because if you think about it, like I don't when I look at his physique, I don't think he needs any more leg. His arms are massive. He has probably one of the best chests in bodybuilding.
yeah,
Like his arms are to me fit perfect with his structure. I mean, you could argue that he needs more back through the back double to blow either. I would say shorten that gap between him and Derek in the back
yeah,
double. So it's like, okay, cool. I have one body part that I can really hone in on, and everything else, if I just maintain, we're good. Like now, I know he won't look at it that way, but I think that's why he can compete more frequently, is he has a majority of the muscle he ever needs to continue to win. So
yeah,
because I mean, it's like a little bit more back, and then to continue just to like get more, probably, I don't know if it's mature is the right word, but just harden that muscle up to where the skin sits and drapes like perfectly against the muscle. So
yeah,
I, I think he definitely has the ability to continue to win. But I mean, with the way the judging is, I like it because it isn't like, oh, here we go, same champ over and over again. Like they're giving it to the best person that day. And that has to be exciting to the other competitors, because it's like, I think when you and I got into bodybuilding, it was always like, oh, well, it's like Lee Haney won everything, and then Dorian won everything, and then Ronnie won everything, and then Jay had that shorter stint, and then it was Phil. Like that era almost seems to be gone of
yeah,
reigning champions. So
yeah, yeah. No joke.
yeah. Anybody who you thought underperformed or was underwhelming?
Oh, dude. Uh, what was his the Well, Brandon Curry, I think is getting too close to his retirement.
Agreed. I
I
think so.
mean, he still looked good, but like something was like off with his physique. Just um, one dude who like actually really surprised me was Mike Summerfield.
Yeah. Yes. I had him winning shots against Bumstead.
Yeah, same.
Now, I may be looking through that through like a bodybuilding lens.
Yeah,
Um, which I would love to hear, like, how Tyler does those breakdowns of physiques. I really hope they do that, like, of the
yeah.
placement, and they talk about him and Bumstead. Like, I'd love to hear if they saw it the same way I did.
Well,
um,
they someone did because on the scorecard, I have the scorecards pulled up right now.
okay.
But Chris had 6 points, and
Oh,
Mike had nine.
okay. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
means that a judge
Yes.
had Mike in first.
And what to me that's so say throw out the top and the bottom. So it had to be two, because
Yeah,
that's how I look at it at least.
yeah,
So two people had to have him winning out of
yeah,
what, five, seven total.
yeah,
So yeah. So yeah, that was if I had to say underwhelming of open, I was right where you were. It was Curry. I was really hoping that by him showing nothing, he was going to be a freak.
yeah,
But then he posted that, and listen, I know they do all that weird shit, like they'll post old videos and trying to make people think these like mind games, like. But he posted that leg training video on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it,
yeah,
and I was so underwhelmed. I was like, I hope this isn't 2 weeks out or 1 week out. Like,
yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Um, So yeah, I don't know when that really was taken, but I saw that and I was like, oh, that's not a good look. And then he came out, and I think when you look at the landscape of that top five, everyone's legs are so good as a whole that he just can't stand with that anymore. Um, Upper body wise, yes. Um, yeah, I can say that I didn't watch all of Classic, like start to finish. So,
Yeah, I didn't see
the,
the whole thing either, but
no, no. What blew my mind? Well, I'll tell you what the most shocking was. The discrepancy between Keyone and Sean Clarita was the biggest shocker to me.
that was a pretty good big shocker.
Mm, yeah,
Keyone just blew away since last year. I mean, like
yeah. Yes, agreed. Yeah.
phenomenal work for him.
I actually wished I would have loved to see him compared to the top six of Open
Yeah,
and just see what it looks like. I'm not
yeah,
saying he'd win or place top six, by the way. I would just love to me, it's an God, I'd love to see that. I just would. Um, because him standing next to the rest of those 212 guys, it was one of those scenarios where it's like a heavyweight standing beside middleweights.
yeah,
Uh, And I know that sucks, right? Because Sean is a great champion and he has tons of muscle. And I know everyone called him like little Ronnie Coleman, but I, it looked like they pushed way too hard for conditioning for me.
yeah,
Because it's gonna sound really fucked up because his legs are bigger than mine, but his legs did not look like they should have.
yeah,
And what we've seen in the past from him.
yeah.
Um, it was just a different look. I know they probably heard all that judges' feedback of his stomach last year and all that kind of stuff, but I'll be honest with you, I preferred his last year's look over this one.
I'm on the same boat as you, honestly.
Yeah, because I know people posted it and they were like, "Oh, look at the improvements," and I'm like, "I like the other one, man." I realized the stomach was probably not as controlled or as much detail, but dear God, like that trade-off, that there has to be a middle ground.
Yeah,
Um, because he was exploding full and looked stupid from every shot, in my opinion. And then in this one, it was just kind of like each shot was almost underwhelming.
yeah,
And that's disappointing because I know how hard that guy works.
hmm
I mean, I think we all have occasions of, I know I've prepped people like that. I know I've done my own body like that, where you try to push to new levels of what you think are better conditioning, which is going to make you better and it makes you worse.
yeah,
And that's at that level, that's a tough balance.
yeah,
And from the outside and the untrained eye, I know people are like, oh, that's stupid as shit. That can't happen. But that is something that John Meadows taught me is that, Chris, when you start losing body parts, it's too far.
yeah.
Do you want three
Well,
more glute striations to lose your back or your
yeah,
arms or your shoulders? Like it's bodybuilding.
yeah. And that's where a lot of things come into play. So many people are, you see it all the time where they start chasing, glute striations, but other body parts fall off.
Yep.
And like Samson's a good example of that. Like his glutes weren't crazy striated, but everything else was there.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Like if he pushed himself to where he had striated glutes, like would he lose his arms? Would he lose his legs? Would he lose his back? Would he lose his chest fullness?
Right.
You
Yep.
know? And he shows up, he has shredded glutes, but everything else sucks. I mean, like that's a pretty big jump. But like that's what happens to a lot of people. They start chasing things and they don't see what other things are falling off.
No. No.
And that's like the fun part about prep is sometimes like for me, right? Arms are always one of those things where it's like arms usually fall off in prep. And it's like, well, off season's where you fix that.
Yep.
Have
Yep.
bigger arms to start with.
Yes. Yep.
And then so if they do fall off, they're still good.
Yes. Agreed. Yep. And I know like chasing that ultra peeled look is addicting.
Yeah.
And I learned that once on a Stairmaster with Shelby as my coach, doing 2 hours a day on that. I definitely was lean, but I had no quad sweep. Well, sorry, I didn't have. For me, I had no quad sweep,
Yeah.
and it's like, like that was not a better look. Like
Yeah.
I would have done better with not as lean, but all the muscle I'd gained in the off season as opposed to melting that shit off.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it's that's a weird topic to talk about. I don't know if you actually melt the muscle off because it came right back as soon as my food increased and I wasn't doing that much cardio. Maybe some people would call that muscle memory. I don't know what it is. Like, because it always comes back.
I
Um,
kind of look at it like a sponge.
okay, okay, yeah,
Right. Off season, you just pulled that sponge out of a soapy water, completely full of water, right?
yeah,
And
yep,
it's big.
yeah,
But if you take that sponge and you leave it in your garage for a year,
yeah.
like it's fucking like it's like fourth of the size. The muscle's still there. It's just
Yeah.
So like
It's like
when
beef
you add
jerky.
the yeah, it's like a piece of beef jerky.
Yep,
So when you add the food back and it just comes it rehydrates or whatever.
yep.
Like I'm not saying that's what happens in your body, but
Right.
the analogy I'm saying. The muscle's still there. It's just not doing what it wants to because it's like you know condensed
Right.
because you took all the food out of it.
Yes.
You know,
And you gave it rest,
yeah,
And I think that's the problem, right? Because you hear a lot of these, I'm gonna say experts say, oh, just he needs to get on the stairs for 2 hours and suffer, or he needs to push that treadmill or, fill in the blank. And it's like, yeah, but there's definitely diminishing return with that. And I know it because I've done it personally and with people.
yeah,
Because as like I said, you end up chasing a ghost, or it's almost like a demon, is how I look at it. Like you catch that demon, but it wreaks havoc on your physique.
yeah,
And it's like, hey man, like that at the end of the day, it's the balance. And sometimes, a lot of times people will say to me, Chris, what's the answer to that? Here's the answer. You stay leaner in your all season, right? Like, so
yeah,
I can keep your food higher longer. The
yeah,
people who don't lose massive amounts of muscle tissue in prep, and this is whether you work with me or you don't, are the ones that their food in the all season is sky high when they start a prep. Their cardio is very low and their training is hard, and their training doesn't diminish at all until probably 2 to 3 weeks out, if at all.
yeah,
That's the secret to me, right? Because inevitably everyone's food will get lower, but how low is a big difference. And then how frequent can I refeed you with food, give you off days of cardio? All of that heavily play a factor to me in that end look. And no one wants to address that um, when they're talking about getting to new levels of leanness. Like, it's not always about that 16, 18-week prep. It might be the whole year. And I'm not saying, I think people don't, I want to make this crystal clear. I'm not telling you have to have striated glutes year round, but there's a difference of body fat of some people. Like if you're sloppy fat versus just kind of chubby.
yeah,
Like, and I think what you and I will always call kind of chubby is like, we still have arm and leg veins all year. You can still see your abs, and every muscle is clearly defined. Like, I'm not saying it's dug out, but listen, I still have quad striations all year. I've been to places in body fat where I haven't had that.
yeah,
There's a difference when, like, you put on your belt and you have like that little bit of lower back where it's like you can feel it bubble up between your pants. Yeah, we don't want that. So, yeah. I'll tell you someone who I was so pleased to see, but the placing didn't reflect it, was John Jewett. I thought he looked
Oh yeah,
incredible.
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
him in 11th was. I mean, he looks phenomenal, and like he doesn't miss.
No, no, no. That's the best I've seen him ever.
Yeah,
Um, and I know that had to be rewarding. And here's what sucks, right? Is I think the internet will say 11th. Ugh, man, that's the 11th best in the world.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and to think, like, what do you say he put on like 18 pounds of muscle between this year and last year?
Hmm.
Fuck.
Yeah,
So, yeah. That's the swinging pendulum, right? Of like we just talked about Samson not doing anything right. I feel like John Jewett does everything right.
yeah,
So to me, what that says is, don't get it twisted. What that says to me is there's multiple ways to do this, and
yeah.
it's
There's a lot of
whatever
ways to
you
skin a
enjoy
cat.
the most.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Well, I think I just made a post about this. Like, if you don't love what you do, it's gonna become a chore,
Right.
and
Yep.
you're not gonna like doing it.
Yeah.
And the difference in quality of things you like doing versus things you don't like doing,
Yeah. Yep.
like go find a construction worker who loves building houses and
Right.
a construction worker who does it because he has to.
Yes.
The quality of the house is vastly different.
1,000% agreed.
You
Yep.
know, now apply that to bodybuilding. That's all it is.
Yep. Yep. I just had a guy on one of my YouTube videos ask me, he said, Chris, I thought the 2.0 John Meadows programs were for growth. 3.0 were for maintenance. And 1.0, I have no idea why anyone would ever do those. And when I read that initially, I kind of chuckled to myself. And I'm like, first of all, there's no program that John ever wrote that was for maintenance.
Yeah.
Like, and listen, I was raised early on by Milos saying this over and over again. If you walk in the gym, it's to make muscle grow. That you have one job. It isn't a fat burning process. It isn't, and when I'm talking about strength training, by the way, I'm not talking about cardio. So if you go into the gym, do cardio, ignore that. That's not what I mean. If you pick up weights, it's the sole intent to be bigger or better, or
Yeah.
bigger and better. And I've always looked at it that way. I've never thought of going in the gym. I've never been to a point in my life, and maybe I'll get there one day where I'm going and I'm like, I'm just trying to keep what I have. No, fuck that. When I do a work set, it's to be better. Um,
Yeah.
no matter if I have 3 or 10 or 20, um,
Hmm.
meaning sets.
Yeah.
And I think that's the common misconception with training is like go in there with a fucking purpose, man. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to say it. I never drove 6 hours or flew to Ohio to meet John, and he was like, "Huh, you just want to go and chill and cruise today?"
Yeah.
Was never happened, and it didn't matter if it when I was training with him at 23 or before he passed away. And that's in the height of his bodybuilding, chasing a pro card when he was pro or when he was retired. Every time we went into the gym, it was to find ways to get better. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't even know why I went on that rant there, but
Well,
just
it's one of those things that you see all the time. It's just people are like, oh, I'm going to, I got this fat burning exercise. It's just like that happens in the 23 hours you're not at the gym.
right. Yes. Yep. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, your fat burning exercise is not snacking on your goddamn fucking snacks.
Right.
Eat your meat and rice, and that's it.
Right.
Stop eating the bonbons and the fucking Hostess cupcakes.
Yep.
You know,
I'll give you a good example, right? So let's say you and I are going to go in and we're going to do a reverse pec deck to start our shoulder portion of the day off. And we had to do, say, I put on there three. We wanted, you like, hey, what do you want to do? I'm like, let's do 3 sets of 30. I think a lot of people will think, oh, that's just a fluffy, go through the motions, get 90 reps and go to the next exercise of side laterals. I don't think you or I ever look at it that way. I'm like, how much blood and pump and pain can I bring to that rear delt in those 3 sets?
yeah.
And even though,
Well,
like, go
so
ahead, sorry.
whenever I do that, the first set I'm getting maybe 30. The
Yes,
second set I'm getting maybe 25.
right.
And the
Yep.
third set I'm maybe getting 20.
Yes.
The weight doesn't change, by the way.
Nope. Nope. Agreed. Agreed. I mean, the way you just described that was flawless. And uh, and I always try to tell people like you could do those 90 reps and you can do those 90 reps.
Yeah.
And those are very different. Um,
Yeah.
and I've even done things like to play mind games with myself to where set one of that 30, let's say with 130 pounds, I say, you know what, on the set one, I'm going to hold that contraction for a 3 count or a 2 count. Set two, I'm going to hold it for a 1 count. And set three, I'm just going to pump them and get through them. So that's a way to still get on 90, but I'm modifying the form or the execution of each so that each set of 30 is hard. Where
Yeah.
the way you describe it is, I'm going to hit failure on 30, and then each progressive set after that, I'm going to lose reps. And how many reps you lose is completely dependent upon that day.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's such a nuanced thing, I know. And I know unless you go through that experience with one of us or someone who knows how to get after it and train and grow actual muscle tissue, that can escape you because you'll think, oh, like this is just a pump. Like this is just go in there and get a pump. And I'm like, no, man, there's a way to gain fucking muscle. And even though it isn't, say, if we're speaking of shoulders, even though it's not a barbell press or a dumbbell press where you can like, you're definitely going progressive overload and trying to move weight and it's hard. Like the side laterals, the rear laterals, the band pull aparts, all those things have a place in the pain and progression mode. But you got to take it serious enough to do that. And listen, you know how to train shoulders. And if you train shoulders with the way I write it or the way you do them, if you can touch your head afterwards and scratch your head, or you say go in the shower and scrub your head with soap, you didn't do it right. Because your arms don't want to move past here.
Yeah.
It's horrible if done right. So, I think to kind of wrap this Olympia thing up, the bright spot of the weekend for me was seeing Missy re-win or
Oh
gain
yeah,
her title back. Man, like what of all the people who won or even competed, like her journey back to that victory, fuck,
yeah,
it had to be treacherous, you know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And watching her regain that was awesome.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, after like the crazy thing is, like last year when she tore it at prejudging, she was in first place,
yep.
and then got a DNF for not showing up to, you know, to the presentation.
Hmm. Yeah, talk about aching at your soul.
Yeah,
Because not only did you not win, but you have all that rehab and pain and the muscle atrophy and then regaining function. And to come back and win fitness again, like, fuck. I think most people, if they would have competed again, said, you know what, I'm just going to jump over and do figure, you know?
yeah,
But she was like, no, fuck that. I want that title back. And to watch, I mean, the amount of videos I know I watched of her like post the comeback, it was you talk about inspiring.
yeah,
If you ever, and anyone out there going in a prep or an all season that you feel sorry for yourself, go watch that. That's hard. Like you still have fully functioning tendons and ligaments and no injury, or if they're much more manageable injuries. Um, and oh, by the way, you have to get on stage and pose, much less do backflips.
yeah.
So that it always brings me back like full circle with John, right? Like that's such a cool moment for her. And to know that I always try to tell people like the ones of us who gravitated towards him have that ability to flip a switch and to
Yeah.
say, fuck everything else. I know how to work and I just need to get back to it. And
Hmm.
those are the people that always gravitated towards him and worked well with him and not only were clients but friends of his. And that speaks to a culture that I pray we can maintain, like that's the group of bodybuilding and bodybuilders, no matter if they're retired, not retired, like I'll still see them at events and it's like we still share the same love and passion for the sport. And I hope that never evades this culture of bodybuilding. Because I think the other side of that crowd is like show and ego and look at me and narcissistic, right? And that's what I hate about the sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I hate having conversations with people and it's like all about them. It's like, all right, cool, awesome. Have a great prep.
Yeah.
Thanks for word vomiting. And I'll just sit there and listen to the sounding board. But anything to wrap up the Olympia that you can think of or stood out in your mind?
Well, other than I mean, like 60 grand for winning Samson, that's got to feel good.
600,000, yeah.
They upped it, so and knowing the pissing contest, what they have with the Arnold, I bet that's 750.
It's like a race to a million, right?
Yeah,
I mean, fuck. Because even second place was $250,000. Like,
yeah,
fuck. Like that's I mean, that's upper getting to where I feel like is very respectable money in terms of being a professional athlete. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, I don't think bodybuilding will ever touch like NFL, NBA, baseball contracts,
no,
but that's starting to become and definitely working towards a new level of wealth and what wealth generation in terms of like what that title can bring you.
yeah,
So that's a major thing because I mean, dear God, like how long has bodybuilding numbers been stagnant with prize money?
yeah.
So that's a major thing. And they got that cool ring, like that big ring look, that was wild.
Oh, that was real sweet. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So no, that's a great point to make is, I know everyone always says like open bodybuilding's dying and all this shit. And listen, it's not. The freaks still win. And what I'm really curious to see is, and I'm not trying to like talk shit about other divisions, but what will Classic do with Chris removed? Like to me, that'll just shift even more focus on open bodybuilding. It'll be back to it, because he pulled a lot of focus to Classic. And not to say those guys in Classic aren't as good, but I don't think they carry the weight that he does.
no,
both from a business perspective, social media following, and then just his physique being so incredible. So,
Yeah. Dude, the other thing with Classic is I think they need to remove some qualifications.
yes.
52 guys competing in a class. I mean, Jesus, like
Yeah.
I think there should be 25 tops.
Oh, at max. I was going to say
So
15 or 20. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 20, yeah, 25 tops. I mean, maybe 20. I say to go 20. Like I like 20. That's a nice number.
Agreed.
Because I mean, they stopped scoring at 16 anyways.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like, there's what is that? 40 guys who are like, I took 16th place yesterday.
Right.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and I mean they're not wrong, and they're the best in the world. I'm not saying anything shitty about them,
Right.
but that's 40 different people who did not get scored.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And I think I've always looked at it like this. That's supposed to be the Super Bowl of that sport. Well, a Super Bowl doesn't have all 32 teams in the NFL.
Yeah,
Like there should be a clear distinction between the best and the rest. And if you aren't in that, as you said, upper 20, dear God, like it's you belong at home in the gym doing work and
yeah,
getting there and chasing that. And again, like you said, I'm not talking shit, but how you can score 52 people like that's USA's, that's nationals, that's a normal pro show by all means, but not the Olympia. Because it to me it diminishes the greatness of those true top 16. Like, and how
yeah,
little look did say those like 10 to 16 get because they had to look through what is that 30-ish others.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm with you. I don't 52 is not the best. And you could probably even argue those 10 are head and shoulders above the rest. Like
yeah,
you have the 10 first, and then you have the rest of classic. So
yeah,
I don't know how they need to do that, whether it's a point system, but I think you give the top two, maybe even three, a they're qualified for next year's Olympia, and that's it, and everyone else has to requalify. Then it's a
I'm
point.
pretty sure it's the top three got requalified
Yeah,
because it used to be the top five and they got rid of that. They went
yeah,
down to
that's
top
right.
three.
So
Yeah,
we
but
figure
they
that's
need to make those shows. They need to have less Olympia caliber shows.
yes,
Like that means like they have like the Northwestern Montana shows like Olympia qualifier.
right. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I think that's really difficult to for a lot of people to come to terms with, but it's just the truth. So yeah, I mean, farewell to Chris. I mean, I'm sure he'll still be a part of the sport at
oh
some
yeah, he's not going anywhere.
some
He's just not
capacity.
competing.
Correct. And I mean, I know a lot of people have mixed emotions and mixed opinions on that. But what else do you have to chase? He's the best. He probably will be for a long time. 6 Olympias, wife, kid, autoimmune disease. It's time. He
Yeah,
probably loses money in a prep because of business that he has
yeah,
to turn down. So I don't fault him. I think that of all things, like you go out on top and you say, good riddance, thank you. As
yeah,
opposed to riding that wave until the physique falls apart or your health takes a serious decline. Like, no need to do that.
yeah,
So I'm sure he might have mixed emotions when he looks on the stage next year. He's like, man, I think I could have won that again. But to me, you go to sleep and sleep easy at night, knowing I walked out a winner, and that's what people will remember. I mean, to me, he has nothing else to prove. Uh,
yeah. No,
no,
he's the most popular bodybuilder on earth right now.
correct. And will be probably for a long time.
Yeah.
um, All right, I think to wrap this episode up, it is my birthday today. I am 40. There is no
Happy
hiding
birthday.
it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Somebody asked me what do I feel like today, and I was like, I actually feel better today because as I was telling you, I had newbie therapy done yesterday, so my body
Yeah.
actually feels better. But I think it's very similar to. I remember going back to work after getting married to Angela, and I was like, "How do you feel being a married man?" And I was like, the exact same as I did yesterday, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, her and I'd been together at that point almost 4 years, and we had lived together for 3. So it's like I don't feel any different. Um, but I think if I can say anything about, I had a little bit of time to reflect this morning of It's just gratitude and grateful for the spot I am in life. Like when I look back at, starting bodybuilding at 19, I had no idea that I would be at this spot in life doing what I'm doing. So I'm grateful for that. Outside of a weird back injury that was just, I think probably time and happenstance. Like my body's put together really well still,
Yeah.
thank God. Um, for the most part, I can still train the way I want to. I can still generate intensity. I still wake up and love it every day and look forward to that training. Chaz and I are going to film back today. Um, so
Sounds like a day.
yeah, exactly right. Like it's not one of those things where it's like, oh man, if you go eat my face off, like that's just another day, man. Like it's, I woke up, I had my normal one. I'm about to eat chicken and rice and go train.
Yeah.
It's, I know that some people make a big deal of it, and her and I went and had a nice dinner at a steakhouse. I had a fillet of baked potato and a salad. Like it is what it is, man. Like I want to believe that I'm still very young at heart. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm really fortunate in life to, help tons of great athletes and people who want to become that. I have two kids who thrive at sports. I have a wife who loves me, and I get to coach football. So like there's not much more I can really ask out of life other than to just keep progressing and growing my business and to keep progressing in bodybuilding, which I'm still able to do. And like I said, like I'm just grateful for that. And outside of that, I don't need much.
Yeah.
Like I have a home that I love. I have a truck that I drive that is a blast to ride around in, and I have gyms that welcome me in this area who let me train the way I want to. So,
Yeah.
it's I always viewed myself like in bodybuilding. I always felt like I was always one of the young kids because the people that I congregated around were always 5, 10, 15 years older than me because those are the people I got along with because I didn't understand most of the young kids myself because they were always chasing something else. And I was like, man, I just want to be big. I just want to be big and fucking freaky. And I was talking to Dwayne last week, and he's like, "Man, he's like, it's hard to believe I'm 15 years older than you." And I was like, "Man, I still remember competing against you for the first time at my very first NPC show, and I believe he won the super heavyweights, lost the overall." And I remember looking at him and being like, "Fuck, man, like I just want to be that big one day. Like
Yeah.
I want that shit." And anytime I go in his gym and I see that he has that massive trophy case with all the titles he's won and shit, and I'm like, man, you think one day I'll ever be able to amass something similar to that? And it's something cool to kind of look back and reflect on because I've taken a much more slow and steady approach to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Uh, it hasn't been fast. It hasn't been glorious or glamorous, but it's worked.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna keep riding it. And some people say, "How many more years you got?" I'm like, I have no fucking clue, man. When I wake up and my legs look like shit, that's probably when I'll walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've said that before. It's like when you wake up and you don't want to do it,
Mm, yes. Yep.
you know?
If I ever
'Cause
go, oh, cardio, or if I ever go, oh, eggs and
yeah.
oatmeal.
Yeah. Because it's fine. I mean, I feel like both of us were really lucky because we fell into something what we love doing.
Yep.
Like I get people asking me all the time, like, how do you find motivation for this? I'm like, I don't have an answer for them because,
Right.
like, honestly, like I'm excited to do this shit.
Oh yeah. I
Like
agree.
I get like not having motivation to do stuff. Like if I have to mow my fucking yard, I have to like, get an energy drink and hype myself up and be like, fuck, I gotta mow like my lawn. I get that. Like I don't want to do that shit, but like going in and doing legs, like I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Like that's what I like doing. Like why would I not want to do that?
Right. It's really funny. Chance saw that video I posted of doing True Squat, and he's like, what's so crazy to me is he's like, at this point it was last week. He said, "You're almost 40. You're the only person in that gym, and yet you just go to the end." And he coaches with another group of guys, and he works with a bunch of guys that are similar to our age, and he's like, the perspective those gentlemen like don't have with life. He's like, they think, "Oh man, I'm 40, my body hurts, I'm on the decline, this is the worst I've ever felt and looked." Like the idea of, they'll always say like, "Oh man, to be 20 again or 18 or whatever." And he's like, you're actually living a life where this is the best you've ever been. And you're 40. And he's like, it's because you go in there and do that same shit you've been doing for 2 decades. And I'm like, yeah, like it's like you said, I could have probably found every excuse in the book to go in there and say, ah, you know what, for quads that day, I'm just gonna do a bunch of giant sets and keep the weight light and pump. But to me, I'd have felt so unsatisfied walking out of there knowing that that's not what I should have done. Because there'll come a day, as I've seen, I've said on the here and said to you before, like there'll come a day where I might not be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll look back in a moment like that and regret and be like, man, like you still had it, bro. Like, why in the fuck would you pass that up? Like, it's still in the tank. Like, fucking find it. Like, because I've had lots of guys in their 40s and 50s and even 60s who I've trained, and they have this very grim outlook. And I'm like, man, like, no, like, how I've always looked at it is I never know the last time I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be the last. Like, there was a day where it was the last time I ever had 4 plates and 4 chains on the side of a back squat. And I can never do that again. Not safely. I could do
Yeah.
it once. If you and I got all hyped up and I strapped a belt on and said, fuck this shit, like, I don't doubt I could do it. I'd pay the price for probably the next month, 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to be able to do that regularly and consistently and to feel that power of like when you unrack that bar and the plates jiggle and the fucking bar fluxes on your back and to know that like you're going to smoke 8 to 10, like there was a day where that was the last time and I never did it again.
Yeah.
I never want to have that regret with fucking anything because there's going to be a day probably when I can't load 6 or 7 plates on a hack squat and take it to 15 reps. And if I still have it, I'm going to find it. Like, that's how I look at it, at least. So,
Yeah.
to everyone out there over 40 or approaching that, like, as long as you treat your body like it deserves to be treated, I've always found that it'll give me what I want. And,
Yeah.
I know that maybe not everyone has the luxury that I do to get chiropractic adjustments and weekly massage and do foam rolling and body work and cryotherapy or ice baths or all the shit that I do over the course of a week. But I can tell you it works. And it's like little shit like stretching and mobility, or the newbie. Like
Mhm.
I did 2 hours of newbie on a Sunday afternoon when I could have been home sitting on my couch watching football. Well, guess what? I went and sat in Chris Osborne's house and we watched the Redskin game while I was getting my fucking ass kicked. It's just a choice.
Yeah.
And would I've rather been hanging out with my wife on the couch or, doing something with her? 100%. I'd rather been doing that than the pain I had to go through to get my Achilles loosened up. But that's what I do because
Yeah.
it's a choice. And I can either suffer through it and realize, like, hey, this ankle mobility, fucking Achilles issue that I was going through, like, it can either get better or it can progressively get worse. And then what's it going to do? Then it's going to throw my knee off or my hip or something is going to get fucked up. So that's my Chris words to wise. And I realized, like, I remember what it was like being 20 and all the old guys telling me, like, hey, Chris, like, take care of yourself and like stretch. Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then now I'm like, man, I should have been stretching when I was 20.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think a lot of people understand this. And I'll just say this and we'll wrap this bad boy up. Like, here's what leg day looked like for me. I'd get out of the car, I'd walk down the steps where you're in a train, I'd do like 3 shitty, like just fast-paced leg extension sets to get warm, and then we would go squat. And we would go 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate, 5 plate. Like, that's what I thought a warm-up was. Wrong.
Yeah.
No, like, and the funny thing is, people would see me do those leg extensions. I'm like, why are you even doing those? I'm like, I know they're pointless. And then eventually, I got to the point where I wouldn't even do leg extensions. It was like straight to the squat rack, like. And then thank God I met John. So,
Yeah.
yeah, don't do that. Don't be a dumb meathead. Like I just because in my mind I thought that what everyone I think thinks when they're young is I want to be as fresh as I can for squats. So I want to do as many as I can with as
Mhm.
much as I can, and that's all I cared about. Like it was a race, no matter if we were doing reps that day. Like because sometimes my training partners I'll be like, oh, let's just see how much weight we can get for 20 or
Yeah.
15 or 12 or fill in the blank. And there'll be days where we do 5 and 6s or 8s. But it was always about how much you could do for the rep goal we were after. And I wish I'd have been smarter when I was younger. So
Yeah.
speaking of back injury, that's probably why I was there. because all I knew was at the time I was like, I love squats. It felt good and I was good at them. So
Yeah.
I think every young egotistical 20-year-old like knows that. And I used to love walking 315 out in a warm up and just sitting in a hole and like talking shit to my buddy and then standing back up like dumb. I remember one of the best sets I ever had. I'll say this and then we'll wrap up. One of the best sets I ever had is we were doing 2 count pauses in the hole with 3 plates, and I did 26 reps.
Yeah.
And man, like those first 10 were like water, like just didn't even feel like there was weight on my back. And I still remember that session. And I remember I racked it and I was fucked afterwards. And my buddy was like, that was one of the best set of squats I've ever seen. I was like, it felt that way. Like
Yeah.
it just to totally own 315 and just sit down on your hamstrings and pause and then come up and do 20 plus reps, man. Like no one in the gym that I was at was doing that. Um,
Yeah.
and like that again, that's what made me fall in love with bodybuilding is I love chasing those damn ghosts of I had no idea one day I'd go train with John Meadows, but I was going to be prepared. And that's how I did it and had no fear. I was
Yeah.
nervous because people ask me that a lot. Like, were you nervous? Like, yeah, hell, fuck yeah, I was. But the moment we did our first, what I would consider real set of hamstring curls, all that melted away.
Yeah.
I was where I was meant to be at that time, and I prepared as hard as I could. And it was just a matter of just lifting. Like, we'd been there before. I know what it was like to take a set of leg curls to the end. I knew what it was like to squat till I couldn't stand up. So I had no fear. Which is why I will always say you and I, you put us in the gym with anyone. I'm not scared. Like
Yeah.
I just not. I've been to places of hell in a session as you have that I just don't think someone can beat it. Like, and if we can find somewhere new together with somebody else, man, I'd love to experience it. I'm going to welcome that. Like,
Yeah.
please,
I'd be very much looking forward to it.
right? Because there, as you and I have said many times, there's new peaks that no one's discovered yet. So that's where we end it. Olympia's over. I'm 40, and you get better by the week. So until next time, Chris, Dave, we are done.